Vrinda.
And I'm Josh.
And today we'll be interviewing author Anne Case.
Hi Anne, have you always wanted to be an author?
Yes, I think I have actually. I think without realising it, but at a very young age I used to write stories, and I always loved listening to stories and reading stories, and ideas for stories were always in my head, so I often was writing, and it wasn't really until years later that I realised, gosh, I just have this writer inside me that has always been there, and maybe it's time I listened to that writer who's going, come on, let me do some writing, you know. So when my kids got a little bit older, I thought, right, I'm gonna really give this my full attention now, and that was how these came about, really. Yeah.
We've been enjoying reading one of your books, Toy Street Heroes, in our class. What inspired you to write Toy Street series?
Well, I think I always loved stories about groups of kids who were friends, and I always liked that kind of going on adventures, mystery. I guess when I was a kid I loved things like Famous Five, Secret Seven, but they were all British, and or they were kind of there used to be a thing called the Nancy Drew mysteries, and so again they weren't New Zealand stories, so I think I always felt that I would like to do something based in New Zealand, in the New Zealand street, and use those things that I loved, like the mystery and the adventure and the friendships, and not always perfect friendships, like sometimes little arguments and silly annoying things happen, but mostly lots of laughter and fun. Yeah, so I think that's kind of what led me to Toy Street. And at the time I was teaching with a friend. I shared an office with a few teaching friends, and one of them was called Tui, and she was always asking me questions about my writing and saying, so what are you doing now, and what are you going to do with that character? Is that character going to, you know, da 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 da? And because she was such so interested, I said, do you know what, I'm going to name the street after you. So it became Tui Street. Yeah.
How did you get it published?
Well, that's a really good question, because it's actually really hard to get books published, and I think the reason, well, actually in some ways it's easier. A lot of people are self-publishing, and little companies are starting up that are publishing companies and doing things a little bit differently. But in the traditional publishing companies, it's quite hard. They have hundreds and hundreds of people sending in their books, their manuscripts. So what I thought was, I'm going to enter it into a competition, and the competition's prize was to be published by Scholastic, and the name of the competition, you might just see there, was the Tom Fitzgibbon competition. And so I put it in that competition after working on it a lot, doing drafts and getting paying for somebody to edit it, and yeah, then I entered into that competition and got a phone call a few months later saying you've won. And so I did a little dance around the place for a while, kind of yahooing, and yeah, that was how that got published. And then basically Toy Street Heroes was coming after it, and but actually I published it through a different publisher, the second one, because this publisher, one of the people who runs the company is the guy that does the illustrations, and so he was quite keen to publish it, and so I thought, and also Scholastic, who were fantastic, take a lot longer to publish, so they take like about 1.5 years for things to go from being a manuscript to a book. So I thought, well, I'm going to go with that one then. Yeah.
What is your writing process for your books?
I think just sit down and write is the beginning. It's very easy to find yourself getting distracted and going, oh, I might just go and, you know, do this first. And you just have to go, right, I'm sitting down and I've got this pen in my hand, or I'm at the computer and I'm actually just going to write. And I think also something I've learned, and this isn't my idea, this was told to me, but I found it hard at the beginning. I learned to not stop and reread what I've written too much, because then So if I sit down for an hour to write and I write for 10 minutes and then I go, what's that like? And go back and read over it, I can end up getting quite critical and stopping and trying to fix what I've just written. And I think sometimes it takes about 10 minutes to start getting the motor running. And so it's a good idea just to sit and write and not let your pen come off the paper or your hands come off the keyboard, to keep going and not go back until you've finished your full amount of time that you want to spend writing, and then go, okay, now I'm going to take a break and then I'm going to come back and read over it and think about how to improve it. Yeah, so that's probably my most key thing, is to not kind of start getting judgmental and hard on myself, because I think we all do that. We do it with our art if we're painting, or we do it with our sport if we're playing, I don't know, netball or something like that. We can be critical, and so I think that's one of the key things, is just to let yourself write and not let the judge come in. Yeah.
When and where do you write?
Mostly I write in this little room that's got a spare bed in it, and it's where a family come to stay, or anyone comes to stay, they stay there. But I bought this little old-fashioned desk off Trade Me, and I really liked it because it was one of those desks that you pull the lid down, sort of, and it, yeah. And I just think it felt quite magical, this little desk, and so I like writing on that most of all. Just, yeah, feels kind of special. Yeah.
How long does it take you to write a book?
Well, you know, the first draft, because when I was writing Two Street Tales, I was teaching and teenage kids and writing. So often my writing was at night, or it was in the weekends or school holidays. So it took about a year to get the first draft done. And then probably the next 6 months I did things like got somebody that I had heard was a really good editor to have a look through, and the editor basically reads it and gives you all kinds of feedback, and sometimes that feedback is not what you would have thought of yourself, so it's really useful. That's why it's cool to get a peer, like a class member, to read your writing, or a teacher, and to then just say, where are some bits you feel you want more, you want to find out more, or where are some bits you found confusing, where are some bits that you felt dragged on too much. Yeah, so I did that. So probably by the time I put it in the competition, it was probably about 1.5 years. So that seems a long time, eh? But I guess it was fitting it in around my life, yeah, as much as I could. Yeah.
Why do you love writing books?
I think you know you love something when you're doing it, you don't notice how time is passing. And so sometimes when I'm writing, I'm getting so involved in what the kids are doing, or finding one of the characters really funny and just wanting to sort of have more dialogue with that character, or finding myself getting a bit tense and thinking, what's going to happen next? I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen next. So I'm almost so involved in it that I'm not thinking about time or anything. And that's when you know you're doing the thing you love. Yeah.
Are you working on a book at the moment?
I am. So I am going to do a Tui Street 1/3 book. I kind of wasn't in the beginning, but I've had a number of kids from schools contact me on my website saying, is there a third Tui Street book? So I have started putting ideas down for that, and I think it's going to be called Tui Street Freedom Fighters. And but I'm actually holding that off for a couple of months before I start writing, because at the moment I'm writing a book which is more young adults, so kind of 14 to 16 year olds. And so I want to get that finished and out of the way, and then I'm going to be able to focus fully on Tui Street Freedom Fighters, if that is the title I end up with. Yeah.
What is your favourite children's book?
Oh, yeah, I get asked that question, and I do find it very difficult to answer. When you say children's book, do you mean young children? Yeah, look, there are so many good ones, eh? Like Margaret Mahy, you know, The Witch and the Cherry Tree, and some of her books that are just used to kind of make me think. These books are a little bit scary, and but they're also kind of wonderful. Like, have you ever read The Great White Man-Eating Shark? I think that's what it's called, by Margaret Mahy, where the boy wears a fin on his back to make sure no one else, because the sea's too full of people. So he wears a fin on his back, and people are so terrified that there's a shark, they don't go in the water. So I love Margaret Mahy. I love lots of things. Like I loved reading Going on a Bear Hunt to my kids. I love books that I guess build a little bit of suspense, like, you know, what's going to happen? How are they going to sort this out? Like The Witch and the Cherry Tree. How are they going to get a witch out of this poor girl's cherry tree outside her house? I like that sort of having to find out whether it all is okay at the end. Yeah. I mean, as far as older books go, I loved Harry Potter. It was just a page turner for me. Anyway, that's probably enough books, isn't it? There are so many good books. Yeah.
What is the most important thing you would like children to know about writing stories?
I think that a story doesn't magically just come out of us in a perfect state. I think I would like children who are writing stories to know that your first draft is often not great, but it's got the pearls in it. And so once you start to do another draft and get a little bit of feedback on it from somebody, you can get better and better and better at it. And so something that in its first draft doesn't seem that great, if you work on it enough, becomes so much better. Yeah, that would be my piece of advice, is not to write a story and go, oh, this is pretty, you know, I don't really think much of my story, and just leave it at that. Go, what do I need to do here? And sometimes what we need to do is do something, make something happen that our character doesn't expect or doesn't want to happen. Like in Tui Street Heroes, there are things that happen which people don't expect, like Ella's climbing that tree and she's got her kitten, and then bang, her kitten goes up through the opening into Sky Country. Or in the middle story, The Mountain Secret, the kids think they've solved everything and they're going home, and then bang, Lula turns up in her car and takes the dog and puts her in her car and goes back up the mountain. So the kids don't want Lula to have this dog because they know Lula's so kind of dangerous and such a crazy difficult person that they want to get the dog back from her. So I think putting something in that your character doesn't expect can be good. Like, it can be a birthday party surprise, or it can be something unexpected and a little bit worrying, like you miss the bus, your character misses the bus to school, and another bus arrives, but it's not the normal bus, and the driver's not behaving in the normal kind of way, but you still get on it because you're panicking because you're running late for school. So what's going to happen now? You know, where will that bus go? So I think if you're bored with your story and you think it's not exciting, do something your character wouldn't expect or wouldn't like. Yeah, make life difficult for your character. Yeah.
Thank you for talking with us
You're
today.
welcome.
We've really enjoyed it.
Total pleasure. Total pleasure. Well done, you guys.